Let us pray. Almighty God, ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our counsels and actions, so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Inspire and guide all our counsels. Help us with thy grace to do only those things, so that we may always walk in the path of the unity, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria. Amen. Distinguished colleagues, please let us look at the votes and proceedings of our last sitting. Page 1189, page 1119, page 1191, page 1192, page 1193. Yes, the two Senator Dubois.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Patrick C. Ndubeze. Fellow colleagues, I rise to move that we adopt the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 18th December 2024 as it reflects the proceedings of this chamber. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Ekong Samson. Nduweze, your mic.
I'm Ekong Samson, speaking for Akwa Ibom South. I move, and respectfully so, that the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 18 December 2024 be adopted. I so second. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded that the votes and proceedings on Wednesday, 18th day of December 2024 be approved. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Any petitions? Yes, Senator Oshiloko.
Thank you, the Senate President, the distinguished colleagues. I remain Wasiu Sonny Eshinlokun. I hope, sir, and pray that you allow me to submit this petition from the families of Ogunbode Eleye family of Iwaya. They are asking for compensation of land acquired by the federal government to build University of Lagos. This thing has received the attention of the National Assembly before, and it was approved. Thank you, sir.
Yes, you may proceed to lay the petition.
Thank you.
The petition is referred to the Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Petitions to revert to the Senate in 6 weeks. Any further petition? No. Leader of the Senate. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the only order of the day is the second reading of the 2025 Appropriation Bill 2024. Distinguished senators will recall that Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces presented the 2025 budget to a joint session of the National Assembly on Wednesday, 18th day of December 2024, and in accordance with our Standing Order 91-1B, the 2025 Appropriation Bill is deemed to have been read the first time by virtue of the presentation of the bill to a joint session of the National Assembly. Mr. President, with your permission, I move that the 2025 Appropriation Bill 2024 be read a second Time.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion moved by the Senate leader. I say second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Before, well, those in support that we deliberate on the consideration of this bill with a view to sending it, taking the second reading, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. There's let us the other paper is already in front of you. The other paper is being distributed. Okay. Whilst we are waiting, distinguished Senator Dixon, you have a vice chairman from the FCT on the Committee on Ecology, distinguished Senator Ireti Kingibe. Yes. Please approach me. Wait, this is Senator H.N. Williams. I hope everybody has a copy of the order paper now and the gazetted copy of the bills. Okay, we have Leader of the Senate. It's now confirmed that it's been distributed and everybody has it. So please, you may proceed to move your, go ahead with your lead debate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators, with your permission, I present the lead debate on the 2025 Appropriation Bill 2024 SB 681. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, the lead debate on the general principles of the year 2025 Appropriation Bill, which was laid before this chamber on Wednesday, the 18th day of December 2024, by Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The bill is deemed to have been read the first time by virtue of it being laid before the joint session of the National Assembly on Wednesday, 18th December 2024. Mr. President, my highly esteemed colleagues, this bill seeks to authorize the issue out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 49 trillion 740 billion 165 million 355,396 naira only for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2025. The 2025 budget proposal, pristine budget of restoration, securing peace, rebuilding prosperity, strikes at the very core of the renewed hope agenda and demonstrates this administration's commitment to stabilizing the economy, improving lives, and repositioning our country for greater performance. The 2025 budget has seen a significant increase of 74.18%, reaching 49.7 trillion in nominal terms, signaling a bold fiscal strategy aimed at addressing persistent infrastructure gaps and development challenges. However, in dollar terms, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, the budget contracted by 23.22%, dropping from $36.7 billion in 2024 to $28.18 billion in 2025. This reduction in real value limits the potential impact of the budget on economic growth and the well-being of the population. It is important to note at the onset that this proposal is not strange to us here in the National Assembly, having approved the midterm expenditure framework and the medium-term fiscal framework. What remains for us is to closely examine the contents and the details in order to sort things out and smoothen the rough edges. The major highlights of the budget are basic assumptions and parameters: oil price benchmark of $75 per barrel, daily oil production estimate of 2.06 million barrels per day, exchange rate of 1,500 naira per US dollar, and a total of 13.08 trillion naira, or 4.6% of GDP, and 15.75% inflation rate. B, 2025 revenue and expenditure summary. The proposed expenditure for the year 2025 is 49.7 trillion. The total retained revenue is 34.82 trillion. Fiscal deficit stands at 13.08 trillion. Distinguished colleagues, the key priorities towards rebuilding Nigeria in the 2025 proposed budget estimate amount to a total expenditure that is projected to be 49.7 trillion naira, and key notable highlights of the 2025 budget allocations, which are aimed towards rebuilding the country, are defense and security, 4.91 trillion naira, infrastructure, 4.06 trillion naira, health, 2.48 trillion naira, education, 3.52 trillion naira, 15.81 trillion naira for debt servicing, others, 17.12 trillion naira. The 2025 budget overview. Mr. President, my highly esteemed colleagues, the 2025 budget is a reflection of the theme which centered on securing peace and rebuilding prosperity. The proposal tells a bold and exciting story on the direction the government is taking towards revamping the socio-economic fabric of our society. This can be seen through the lofty dreams of projected drop in inflation from its current rate of 34.6% to 15% next year. Projected improvement in exchange rate from approximately 1,700 naira per US dollar to 1,500 naira per US dollar. Projected crude oil production of 2.06 million barrels per day. Reduction in importation of petroleum products alongside increased export of finished petroleum products. Projected bumper harvest driven by enhanced security, reducing reliance on food imports. Increased foreign exchange inflows through foreign portfolio investments and higher crude oil output and exports, coupled with a substantial reduction in upstream oil and gas production costs. Mr. President, my highly esteemed colleagues, this bill will further consolidate the key policies instituted to restructure our economy, boost human capital development, increase the volume of trade and investment, bolster oil and gas production, get our manufacturing sector booming again, and ultimately increase the competitiveness of our economy. Finally, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I believe that all the proposals in this 2025 appropriation bill are laudable and will enhance the critical needs of the citizens of our country. I therefore urge my colleagues to approve the second reading of this bill for consideration by the Appropriation Committee and its subcommittees, being the standing committees of this Senate. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I thank you for listening.
Yes. Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues. First of all, let me commend Mr. President for the political will he has shown to bring prosperity to his country. Because number one, leaders should have the political will in the first place and resolve that he intends to turn around things, betterment of the country. The budget proposal has clearly demonstrated the intention of the government in this regard. That's why the budget is christened budget of restoration, securing peace, rebuilding prosperity. Peace is sine qua non for a sound economy, for a sound and up and doing society. We all know the problems we are facing in terms of insecurity. Now the government has taken the step to make sure that it deals with the matter in the best manner possible. Frontally deal with this matter. That's why the defense allocation is the highest, up to 4.91 trillion naira. It shows the will of the government to deal with the problem of insecurity once and for all. Deal with the problem. Make sure that there's no banditry, no insurgency, no nothing. That the environment be made conducive for a good society to thrive, for a sound economy to thrive. This is welcome, and we commend the president for taking the issue of security seriously. Then, of course, what do you need after you've taken care of insecurity? A country that creates that environment of peace. What next go? What goes next? Of course, creating the enabling environment for the economy to thrive, for business to thrive, for the private sector to thrive. And how do you do that? By creating the necessary infrastructure, putting the necessary infrastructure in place. Good roads infrastructure, water supply infrastructure, all other infrastructure needed, put in place, power, everything. So now when you do that, you allow the real sector, other sectors of the economy to begin to operate, jobs will be created, and revenues will come in to various entities. And of course, taxes will be paid, and the government will have more revenues. And those revenues will be channeled towards funding, social service, and so on and so forth. So you can see the trajectory of the arrangement, security, infrastructure. And then, of course, the next thing, what is very, very important, contemporary world. It's not about natural resources that you have, but the human capital resources. Human capital is the key, is the number one factor of production as you speak in the whole world. And now the government has decided to allocate a big amount of money, 3.5 trillion, 3.52 trillion. So you can see government is systematic in the way it has designed to deal with our problem. From peace to infrastructure, from infrastructure to human capital. Human capital. So this is something that we need to commend the president for doing, so that our men, our young men and women, young boys, young girls, our children will now be able to have all those things needed for their education. This is a wonderful arrangement. And of course, the health sector is next. If you want your human capital to be up and doing, provide health services delivery system, so that they can be taken care of. Otherwise, the human capital you have, human capital you have, become nothing if they are not given the necessary health support. Mr. President, and again, when you look at other, items, other issues that have been taken seriously, like for instance, we've been talking about we have the petroleum, but the ability to exploit petroleum has become a problem. We can't, before now, we are unable to even meet our OPEC quota. But now the government has determined that, look, this should be a thing of the past. We should try, create security needed, make sure that we are able to exploit as much as possible. Now, what has been earmarked to be exploited, is 2.06 million barrels. This is a welcome development. And I'm sure with the will that's been demonstrated by this president, by the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, this will be actualized. And this is very, very good. Otherwise, we have the oil, but we are not exploiting, getting what we need to have. Mr. President, this budget has a lot of goodies that when we all work together and support the executive government, because it's not an issue of an our government alone, it's an all-inclusive arrangement. We should all be part of the whole thing. The citizens should also be part of it. For us here, we need to oversight properly. All our relevant committees should work to make sure that when this budget is passed, we keep all those responsible for the implementation of whatever is in this budget on their toes, so that they work in the best manner possible to actualize what is in this budget. This budget is a wonderful arrangement, one of the best budgets ever produced in this country. But now, what you need to do after the passage, we should all come around, make sure that we do all that is humanly possible in making sure that fully implemented. I'm sure by the time we implement this budget, this country will turn a land of El Dorado. El Dorado, land of plenty, land of prosperity. Mr. President, I urge all my colleagues to work around to make sure that pass this budget without more delay, and also make sure that we stand in a way that we get the whole thing implemented for the good of this country, for the betterment of our people. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Chief Whip.
El Dorado. Mr. President, distinguished senators, I am Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. Well, I adopt the beautiful and very erudite submissions made by the Deputy Senate President in respect of this bill. I want to further add that security of lives and property is the primacy of governance. And any government that fails and or neglects to protect the lives and property of its citizenry, that government is not supposed to last a minute longer than absolutely necessary, because that is the primacy of governance. Against this backdrop, I applaud the deployment of 4.91 trillion naira to defense and security in order to protect the lives and property of the people, and for the people to engage in meaningful economic activity, especially agriculture in the northwest, the northeast, and north central, that is agrarian in nature as a result of challenge of banditry, Boko Haram, and what have you. People don't go to the farm. So by deployment of this amount of money, it will go a long way in bringing sanity to all the nooks and crannies of the country that are security challenged. Then the other issue is with regard to infrastructure. The deployment of 4.6 trillion naira to infrastructure will go a long way in not only repleting the economy, but will generate a multiplier effect in the economy by way of creating employment and what have you. So that aspect is also applauded. But my main concern is budgets, no matter how beautifully couched, no matter how beautifully presented, if they are not implemented, they remain in the realm of mere estimates that will not translate into bringing concrete realities or concrete development to the doorsteps of the people. So because of that, I urge on the executive to follow up on the implementation of the budget. I can recall that Mr. President, in the course of his speech yesterday, alluded to the fact that the level of implementation of the budget stood at 48% to 50%. So by now, at least we should boost of at least 90 to 80% level of employment of the budget. So I think there is a need for the executive arm of government, particularly the Ministry of Finance, in conjunction with our Committee on Finance, to look at the issue of the policy of bottom-top approach that was introduced that have constituted a cog in the wheel of implementation of the budget. To have a look at that system, because people are complaining about the bureaucratic red tape and bottlenecks that it has constituted in the process of implementation of the budget. So I think that aspect should be looked at so that as beautiful as it is, as elaborate as it is, as aspirational as it translates into bringing dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of the people and not remain as in the realm of mere estimates. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Abba Moro.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Abba Moro. I represent very good people of the Benue South Senatorial District. By the grace of God and your support, the minority leader of this Senate. Mr. President, I want to make a few comments on the 2025 budget as presented by our President, His Excellency President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, GCFR. Yesterday, on the 18th of December 2024. Mr. President, looking at the budget as presented yesterday by Mr. President, we want to believe that if judiciously and effectively implemented, that Nigeria would be making a move in the right direction. But Mr. President, looking back at the 2024 budget and the level of implementation and the key elements that have been brought out by this presentation, there is cause for caution. Mr. President, the provisions for defense looks good on its face, and hopefully with proper timelines on the execution of the security arrangement contained herein, we want to believe that the issue of insecurity will become a thing of the past. And if that happens, Mr. President, I want to believe that all other things are likely to fall in place. But Mr. President, as I have always insisted, the United Nations Education Fund had postulated that 26% of every nation's budget should be devoted to education. Mr. President, Nigeria is far from meeting this standard. And if you go around our educational institutions, especially at the level of primary and secondary, our institutions are in serious states of disrepair that requires urgent repairs if our education foundation must be given the necessary impetus to grow. And so, Mr. President, I think that the provision for education in this budget also requires some review. Mr. President, today, the level of inflation, the cost of food items in the market, certainly is a story for everybody to tell in Nigeria. And so an inflation rate of 34.6%, certainly, Mr. President, is unacceptable. And while efforts are being made to raise or reduce the inflation rate, Mr. President, I still think that 15% inflation rate is still on the high side. Mr. President, the major problem of the Nigerian economy today is the ratio of the dollar to the naira. And so today, we're exchanging the naira for the dollar at 1,700. This rate definitely cannot grow this economy. If you go to any market now, the market woman that sells tomato talks about exchange rate. If you want to go and buy pepper, they talk about exchange rate. You want to go and buy chicken, they talk about exchange rate. So exchange rate now becomes a standard of transaction, even though we are transacting in Naira. And so, Mr. President, I think more effort should be made. 1,500 Naira that is expected to be the exchange rate anticipated and encapsulated in this budget certainly is unacceptable. And so, Mr. President, I think again that needs to be looked into. Mr. President, the oil benchmark has been set. We all have seen it in our medium-term framework. I hope sincerely that we try to meet the standard so that we don't run into further deficit. And so finally, Mr. President, foreign exchange inflows. You will recall, Mr. President, that in some of our discussions in this chamber, we had said that because of our situation, generally, the insecurity, the exchange rate, all and all, that our investors are not forthcoming. And so I hope that if Mr. President keeps to his word and the budget works properly, we hope that energy provision will be seriously improved and our environment, especially security, improves, and we'll be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel in the present inflow of foreign investment that the government is anticipating. So all in all, Mr. President, I, as usual, would want to support the general principle of this budget, but also remember that in implementation, in the details, certain concerns that are raised here are addressed. I thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity.
The Chief Whip. The Chief Whip of the Senate, General Mongoro. Chief Whip, please, you have to do your work. 2 minutes. Because everybody would like to say something. Let us listen to the Civil Senator Ahmed Lawan.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I'm Ahmed Lawan, I represent Yobe North. Mr. President, let me commend our President of the Federal Republic for presenting this very important budget estimate. And in my contribution, I would like to start by quoting one of his statements. And I quote, Mr. President yesterday said, security is the foundation of all progress. And I agree with him completely. Any other thing could easily fall in place when we are secured. Mr. President, defense and security is getting 4.91 trillion naira. To my mind, this is not even enough. But given the paucity of funds that we face, we can say there is a significant improvement over what we had for 2024. Mr. President, the Committee on Defense went on oversight to Kaduna last month, and we visited DICON, the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria. Distinguished colleagues, DICON was established in 1964, 60 years today. But its contemporaries in Brazil, in Pakistan, today can produce fighter jets. DICON is still struggling to manufacture bullets. I believe that when Mr. President says that we are going to deploy technology and other technical and digital means of fighting insecurity, then DICON should be at the center of it. Mr. President, we should be able to make it possible for DICON to produce the kind of equipment, machinery, and platforms that we need in this country. And we have the people who can do that. We have very well-trained technicians and technologists. Mr. President, I believe that Nigeria has suffered enough in the hands of countries where we wanted to import our platforms or our aircrafts. We recall that in the last administration, Nigeria paid for about 12 fighter jets from a certain country. And we paid heavily. But alas, when those aircrafts were finally imported to Nigeria, we were not given every aspect of what we needed to use them to fight insecurity in Nigeria. So we are halfway. The only way to go is to have our own DICON functioning. Finally, Mr. President, because it says 2 minutes, we must commend our armed forces, but we must continue to demand for better and improved performance. And with this kind of funding, I think what we need to do is to keep our eyes on the ball. That is to say, that we ask for accountability. We insist on transparency. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the privilege.
Thank you. Slightly elongated 2 minutes. The dismissed Senator Adam Doshmole, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I join those who have spoken to appreciate Mr. President for his budget presentation yesterday and the style in which it was delivered, smoothly, effortlessly, and very eloquently, confirming that he knew exactly what he was presenting to us. And I think that is worth commendation in itself. Mr. President, like others have said, when I was in the trade unions, we used to question why government should devote so much resources to defense at the expense of education, healthcare, infrastructure. Over the past couple of years, given all that we have faced as a nation with regards to insecurity, I am now convinced more than ever before that none of those other important sectors can be safe unless we have security. And therefore, like all those who have spoken before me have said, I can't question why defense should have a lion's share of the budget. But the lessons we have learned since we assumed duties here is that budgetary provisions alone will not translate to the kind of outcome Mr. President spoke to, namely that our defense policies or management of our defense procurement should be guided in a way as to lay more emphasis on technology and have a much more smart, robust, and effective defense system. This will require that our defense committee, which was happily is chaired by the immediate past Senate president, that our defense people need to be refocused. Even the issue of the defense, when I live in Kaduna, we find at DICON, at a point, DICON was producing furnitures. And in Kaduna, it was a joke of the town that people who, an institution set up to manufacture arms, at the same time, a similar institution was set up in Brazil. Why Brazil are now manufacturing evil jets, defense industries, Kaduna was producing furnitures. I'm not sure exactly what they are doing now. But just to say that my experience has taught me that throwing money at people without ensuring that they use the money strictly for the purpose for which it was appropriated can always lead to what I call goal displacement, replacing popular goal with what is convenient to those who are charged with the responsibility of managing resources that are appropriated for them. I also believe that the right emphasis was placed on health, on education, etc. I don't think any of us here will question those, because over the past 1 year, I can't count how many universities and how many colleges of education or how many technical skill acquisition we have set up. All of those will require resources to fund if they are signed into law. The key issue, Mr. President, that I think our Senate, particularly with reference to our Finance Committee, are chaired by Sani and Abiru and others, I want your attention. This time around, the Senate, through your committees, must ensure that the budget is based on 1,500 naira to the dollar. Everything must be done to ensure that the naira is protected. The purchasing power parity of the naira today, in my view, is grossly undervalued. The naira can buy in Nigeria much more than a dollar can buy in US. And to remove speculation from our economy, leading to hyperinflation, Nigeria needs to be certain that nothing will make the naira depreciate any further. That will require that the Senate committees, as appropriate, working with CBN, monetary authorities, and the fiscal authorities, must guide jealously this figure. We should take them as a decree, just to emphasize my concern about it, that nothing should make the dollar fluctuate further, so that there will be price stability. The target of Mr. President, which he read to us and many of us clamped, was that from current level of inflation that is averaging around 30%, that the target is to cut it down to 15%. What that means is to protect and even enhance our real living standard. Now, to achieve 15% inflation, we require that the exchange rate remains stable as a precondition for general price stability in the economy. The inflation we have faced is not a result of more money chasing few goods, or what the economists call demand pull. The inflation we have faced is the result of cost push. Central to that cost push is exchange rate. That is why we can't speak too much about the need to ensure that this figure in the budget is realized throughout the year. Lastly, I'm happy with the President's emphasis on returning the manufacturing sector, because all of us here are under pressure from young men and the not so young for jobs. Those jobs will not be created by bankers or by banks. They will be created by the civil service. They will be created by conditional cash transfer. They can only be created by the manufacturing sector. When we come to the details, we will see through the Ministry of Industries what new initiatives are put in place to ensure that the manufacturing sector gradually return back, so that our young people can get jobs, and it will contribute to ensuring peace and security in our respective constituencies. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for allowing me to speak for 1 minute 1 minute 56 seconds. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for speaking for 7 minutes and then reducing it to 1 minute and 97 seconds. So I thank you for the calculation. Distinguished Senator Ireti Kingibe.
President, my distinguished colleagues, I would like to also draw the fact that just as the President, the Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria mentioned, security is key. Of course, we have been allocating funds for the security, but we need to actually achieve it because it is the fulcrum of the rest of the development. Farmers can't go to work, nobody can do anything. Even investment will not come as long as this insecurity is not taken care of. Even in the Federal Capital Territory, that's the center of Nigeria, the face of Nigeria, the insecurity is a lot. Even in the elite neighborhoods, people cannot go out at night. You cannot go for a walk without being kidnapped. So it is critical and vital to the survival of the economy of this country that insecurity should be taken care of, and everything else will fall into place. I so submit.
Thank you for keeping to time. Very excellent. Reverend Dr. Senator Amos Johanna.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, as a human resource person, I want to make a few comments based on the statement of Mr. President on paragraph 28. And that is, I quote him, "Our people are our greatest resource." It can never be emphasized that what he said is the plain truth. Our people are our greatest resource. And so, for devoting huge sums of resource towards that is in the right direction. With this, my heart wrenches when we go for public hearings to establish universities and other specialized institutions, and ministries of government come out to oppose it in the name of lack of resources. I think Mr. President has proven them wrong, and they will always remain wrong. That we need institutions that will develop our human resource. Because whatever you do, human resource is very key. If you don't develop your human resource, there can never be economic development. There can be nothing. And whatever you do without people is almost vanity. And so I commend Mr. President for paying special attention to that. And we hope that the implementation of this budget will be geared towards that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. In a bipartisan parliament, when the president is being commended heavily by people who are not from his political party, it makes me happy that yes, indeed, our democracy is maturing. So let me hear from the distinguished Senator Ekong Sampson.
Well, let me appreciate the President for giving me the floor. My name is Ekong Sampson. I speak for the oil-rich belt of Akwa Ibom South. Let me readily align my thoughts with the commendation offered across party lines to Mr. President for the structure and content of the budget, as it were. The budget is, at best, a fiscal compass that explores perspectives of growth for a people. The attention to to the major flanks of defense, of agriculture, of education are only to be expected. Because when we get the foundation right, then we are well on the way to strengthening the very fabric of our democracy. We cannot sleep when our space is not safe. How do we drive investments when our borders, when our space is so insecure? So to this extent, the attention to defense is commendable. What I will want to suggest is that estimate like this necessarily call for a buy-in by the mass of the people. The budget as a compass is inspired when there's a buy-in by our people. We should not live in a country where some of us who have been privileged will look down on this country and call the country names from the comforts of our shores outside. This is a happy country. We are very proud people, very productive, and where a budget captures our very thoughts, I think that should be encouraged. We should not be festooned, as it were, to limitations of loyalties. Some of us have had cause to lament, appear to be more loyal to tribe than this country. And that is signposted by some of the comments that we read, even from our best friends outside this country. That should not be encouraged. Be it as it may, the implementation of this budget makes the entire difference. As I said earlier, the budget process signposts at best a compass. The critical issue is the implementation. One trusts that with the spirit that is driving us now, there will be greater attention to the implementation. Our people deserve the best. There have been concerns over hardship. There have been concerns over the pains that we are going through. No one believes that we are faced with happier days, that happier times are coming. But this also creates a challenge for us to see Nigeria as us, to see security as a common concern. We must not leave security only to the government. We must rise as a people and secure our space. We must own up our security architecture. That way, these estimates will be given breakthrough. And indeed, the common concerns that Nigerians have had would have been addressed. So on behalf of Akwa South, there are prospects for this elaborate compass, as it were, and I trust that happier days are coming. Thank you.
Yes, between Senator Sadiq.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Everybody will have an opportunity, but
My
let's just keep the
distinguished-
time.
My distinguished colleagues, I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent Kwara North in the Senate. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, today in Nigeria, our problem is both security and hunger. So I'm so happy that this budget is targeted at securing peace and rebuilding prosperity. I thank Mr. President for having clear pathway and objective of what this country needs at this time. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, like I've always said, the only way to develop this country is to focus on the key legs that enhances human capital development, which is our education and our healthcare system. And this budget has clearly shown that Mr. President is focusing on that, allocating 2.48 trillion naira to health, and 3.52 trillion naira to education. And of course, infrastructure, which is the major vehicle that development is driven, 4.06 trillion has been allocated. And as we know, we can't do any of this without having a secure country. And we have 4.91 trillion naira allocated to this. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I have two concerns. One, I think, has been addressed here, that no matter what we do, as long as inflation continues to rear its ugly head, the Nigerian people will continue to suffer. And in paragraph 10, Mr. President said, our objective is to further stimulate the economy through the implementation of targeted fiscal stimulus packages, through public expenditures. We need all of this. But most importantly, Mr. President did say that it will be specific non-inflationary spending. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, this is critical and key. And this is what we have to monitor and follow carefully, so that as we are spending, it is not escalating inflation. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, lastly, we want to stabilize the Naira. The only major way we can do this is to ensure that we focus on manufacturing. Yes, Mr. President did say we have about 6 trillion surplus, but it has to be non-oil exports. And to do this, we have to focus on both trade, investment, and manufacturing. As at today, I have not seen the details yet, but we don't pay more attention to those who will help in manufacturing and sending products outside this country. We need to spend more in helping those who are manufacturing and producing, sweating, to make sure that we produce what we need and have excess to send outside. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Kyle Hero, Chairman Banking, Adetokumba.
Thank you, Mr. President,
and
my distinguished colleagues.
financial expert, Baba Adini of Lagos, Ikorodu.
Mr. President. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for all the accolades. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Adetokumbo Abiru, and I represent Lagos East Senatorial District. I would equally like to join my colleagues in all of the commendations that they have extended to the President and the Commander-in-Chief regarding the landmark budget proposals that was presented yesterday. As we may all recall, the budget christened the budget of restoration, securing peace, and rebuilding prosperity, like we all know, is anchored on the renewed hope agenda. So the budget rides on the gradual gains that we have experienced, on the bold and inevitable and necessary reforms that are designed to reset the economic framework of Nigeria for prosperity and growth. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, as we all know, all economic plans and projections rely very strongly on ability to generate revenue so as to fund such plans. So my comments, in support of all that my distinct colleagues have mentioned, will now be around the projections for the budget and equally the revenue. And from what I have seen so far, I think that looking at the revenue profile of this current administration, we will all agree that we have seen gradual improvement in revenue accretion. taking a cue from 2024, the projection for 2024 was about 24 trillion. And as at the end of the third quarter of this year, the government had achieved close to about 75%. So that tells me that the ability to generate the projected revenue for last year is almost, probable. And of course, because the context has been set. Equally important is the oil production projection. And I think that from all of the investment that we have seen lately, just yesterday, I think there was another bid round done by the NUPRC. And of course, there are indications of interest in our oil reserves. And so the production ability clearly will be improved. And of course, the projection for 2 million barrels, I think, is also probable. Now, the exchange rate is also very important. And I've realized that some of my colleagues too have made comments around it. I think the 1,500 is equally reasonable if we look at all of the improvements that we have seen around what the CBN has done. We have seen and have had.
Babadin, you have 1 minute remaining.
We have seen and we have heard that we have had improved remittances, and both in terms of volume and, of course, foreign portfolio investment and all of that. And today we have an accretion of about $42 billion. So that tells me that the ability to stabilize the naira is also not in doubt. Importantly, and I must say this, in the area of inflation as well, I think there are concerns around inflation. But I think that as much as it appears a tall order, because the projected rate is about 15%, and where we are today is about 36 or 34, thereabout. But I also believe that with all of the plans of government in terms of, interventions in the areas of recapitalization of both the Bank of Agriculture and, of course, the Federal Mortgage Bank, Nexim Bank, and co., I think that those interventions will bring about the required coordination between the monetary and fiscal authority that will most likely reduce the rate of inflation growth. So to me as well, I want to agree with my colleagues that this is a budget that will reset our macroeconomic indices for stability. So I also implore my other colleagues to support the budget as proposed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Normally, time is always allocated for each speaker to speak in this kind of debate. I think it used to be 2 minutes? 2 minutes. So, Whip, you are the timekeeper. So when it's done, 2 minutes, look at your time, then you call someone to stop. Senator Abdul Nengi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abdul Nengi, representing Bauchi Central, Bauchi State. Mr. President, I received yesterday's budget with a very cautious optimism. Cautious in the sense that as a parliament, we have listened to the president, we have received the president has done what he ought to do. But as a parliament, the talking point now should not be about what the president brought, it should be about what the parliament can do with what the president brought. Let me quickly, Mr. President, by your leave, read section 80 of section 2, which says no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation except to meet expenditure. Section 3 says no money shall be withdrawn from any public fund of the Federation other than the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation unless the issue of those monies have been authorized by Act of the National Assembly. And it goes on 4, so no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund or any other public fund of the Federation except in the manner prescribed by the National Assembly. The President has done his bit. The ball now, Mr. President, is on our court. What have we done in making sure that our power has been clearly met in 2024? It is important for all of us to recognize that apart from the volume of statistics and data churned out
year in, year out. But at the end of the day, how do our people feel? What is their economic position? Are we improving their economic condition? Have they improved from 2023 in 2024? What about hunger? What about the security? These are some of the things that as a parliament, we must take home to bear. We've met our people day in, day out. The literature of budget is just not enough. That is written to be able to send a clear message. The clear message is all of us meet our people, our constituents. Are their life being worse off last year than this year? It is important that the president pays a lot of attention to security. One of the cardinal things that he has mentioned that endeared my mind to the budget is the issue of security. I think without security, we can no longer do anything feasible. We can no longer make progress. This budget has come with a lot of hopes, and I hope the National Assembly, as it is, will be able to make sure that the performance of the budget of 2025 performs much, much, much better than what you have obtained. Right now, the capital budget has not performed up to 30%, and that is something that the National Assembly must create a way out, so that by next year, 25 this time, we're not going to be complaining to anybody, because if we complain, we're complaining to nobody. It is our job in making sure that this budget is implemented. It is our job in making sure that our people have been given a sense of life.
Your time is off, Senator Ningi.
So, 30 seconds, Mr. President. 30 seconds. Let's have a better 2025 than 2024. That's just my summary.
Thank you very much. Being an opposition guru, but you are a bit, you have commented the budget, so which is good. Thank you. Senator Fadahunsi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Francis Adi Fadahunsi. However, I'm speaking on behalf of two of us who East. Mr. President, we thank our able president for bringing in budget of restoration was yesterday, which all of us hope that it saw what are we really restoring? Now said, securing peace, that's security. Building prosperity, that is to improve the lives of our people. That is others, agric and so on, for greater performance of the economy, stabilizing the economy. Mr. President, 2024 budget is still around. That's about 20 to 30% performance. And the effect is still there on our people. We are having a lot of problems. Thank God it has been extended to June next year, so that we know whether we are worse off or we are better off. 2025, with what it has brought, has brought a lot of developmental challenges. If security not tackled well, the 4.9 trillion given to defense will only be spent by the army on ground. We could not even purchase a lot of movements which they need. As for me, it has to be increased and monitored. Agric will be better if the security is increased. We are talking of inflation. If there are no goods and services to serve the economy, the few goods that are here will be bought. We continue to struggle on it. So my own is security We are talking of foreign exchange rate. Exchange rate, we are going to pin it down to $1,500. A bit naira per dollar. It is good. I'm looking at that magic that we are going to use, unless we produce a lot to counter all what is going. Then debt servicing is about is 15.81 trillion. That is about 40% of the total budget. It's still very, very high. Automatically, we have to look for a way to bring this debt servicing down. And it's going to be a magic next year, and which means the parliament, we have to work very hard to support the executive to bring all these things, all these goodies.
Your time is off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll go straight to the point. I have only 2 minutes. Mr. President, let me join my colleagues in commending the President for this wonderful budget presentation. At the same time, I have noted the key priorities areas towards rebuilding Nigeria, which is also commendable. Defense and security, which has been spoken about, really necessary. Of course, infrastructure is key. Health, education, these are all important sectors that require attention. But Mr. President, I would have wished the Ministry of Foreign Affairs be included in the priority area. Because, Mr. President, as chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee, I can tell you we have over 100 missions abroad, and they are all in dire need of support. They are swamped in debt, dilapidated properties, and what have you. Mr. President, foreign affairs is the image of every nation. So I would like to appeal to this House to do whatever it can, so that we provide the required support for Ministry of Foreign Affairs so that they address their issues. They are able to appoint, because this is almost 1 year we have no ambassadors. These are all funds related. With the provision in the budget, I'm afraid to take them anywhere, especially with the exchange rate. So, Mr. President, I would like you to use your office to please support the Ministry of Foreign Affairs so that they get the required necessary funding to address some of these very critical issues that is becoming very embarrassing in Nigeria as a country. So with this short remark, I would like to once again congratulate Mr. President for this wonderful budget, and I hope this budget will be implemented 100% the coming year. Thank you very much.
We have Senator Oji Kalu, then Senator Abbas. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity. In commenting on the 2025 budget, I would like to align myself with our colleagues in thanking President of Federal Republic of Nigeria for considering defense as an important area. If we do not keep ourselves peaceful, I don't see how we can even do anything in Nigeria. In putting defense and security as a top priority, it means we will do a lot to go back to agriculture. But once we go to agriculture, I would like to see where this budget will address some issue and put stimulus into banks like Bank of Agriculture, the Bank of Industry, so that we can put stimulus back to the economy. If there's no much stimulus in the economy, what we are preaching about in shadowing down the dollar or keeping the dollar lower is not going to happen. We must do more on agriculture, where export production will be key to what we are going to be looking at 2025. And in praising Mr. President of the Republic, we have to pay more attention to the manufacturers. One of my colleagues, either Senator Shemole, just said that because in the manufacturing sector, capacity utilization is down. There is no stimulus in any sector of this sector. So, Mr. President, I'm appealing to you, President of Senate, to see how you can redirect some issues in this budget that will favor the manufacturers and all the rest of them by supporting back of industry very well and supporting the other developmental banks that are within the region so that people can go back to manufacturing, people can go back to production. Because without production, we are not going to do much as a country. I also want to use the opportunity to appeal to you what my colleague said, Senator Abubakar Sani Bello. When you go to our embassies, Mr. President have done very well in the last few months in making new friends for Nigeria and in making Nigeria to be center of world leaders to visit us. But Mr. President, we need to address the issue of our consulates, our embassies, and all the rest of them. They are in a very poor condition. These embassies need rehabilitation, and Mr. President needs to, as a matter of fact, put his representative, like he just went to Brazil.
Your time is up, Senator Ojikalo.
He just went to Brazil. He has nobody to continue what he has done. You need to put the ambassadors and way finance and all the rest of them for them. So, Mr. President.
Time is up, Senator Abbas. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I have to back to what you said.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Aminu Abbas. I represent Adamawa Central, Senator DC Adamawa State. Mr. President, I want to contribute as a follow-up for the previous speakers on this issue of 2025 budget. Mr. President, I want to look at it in three ways. First, the President has done well by providing this 2025 budget, and despite the fact there's no sectoral allocation indicated in the budget. But I did a little analysis to see that aside from the debt servicing, which takes about 16-something trillion, the remaining budget, about 60% of the budget is going to be spent on capital, which is very commendable by Mr. President. That's about 17-something trillion will be spent on capital. Secondly, Mr. President, if you look at the NBA statistics recently, over 600,000 Nigerians were killed within the last 12 months. So if Mr. President is providing 4-something trillion on defense and security, I think we need to even encourage him to provide more for defense and security, because people pay ransom, according to MBS, of over 2-something trillion within the last 12 months. So we are going to commend Mr. President. I even ask him to improve more on the provision for defense and security, Mr. President. Finally, Mr. President, I want to state that research institutions were abandoned. We neglect research institutions. Any country that neglect research and development, the country is doing it at their own peril. I want to encourage Mr. President, the next time, the budget will take care of research and development for the country so that we'll be able to produce more in Nigeria and we'll be able to suppress the request for forex. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Agadaga, then Senator Vito Ome, then we cross to that side. Senator Zam is not around, then Senator Hassan Hussein Babangida Adam. So let's move in that order to 2 minutes.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Senator Chief Benson Sunday Agadaga is my name. I speak for the good people of Bayelsa East Senatorial District in Bayelsa State. The state that produced the first oil well in the country, which is the economic mainstay. Mr. President, the budget before us is a laudable budget, a commendable budget. I'm particularly excited about the total retained revenue at over 34 trillion. I want to believe that this is a result of the bold economic policies of Mr. President for us to be able to have a revenue of that amount. It could be recalled that the budget this year, it's actually shown that the budget is at over 47 trillion. In less than 10 years ago, we had a budget of about 4 trillion naira. In about 10 years, it's now 47 trillion. It's commendable. It actually shows that we have hope in the economy of this country. I want to thank Mr. President. However, education should actually be increased. But when you consider the number of times, the number of universities and higher institutions were established on the floor of this Senate, it becomes marvelous how we can get money to source for that. I want to actually say that we need to move closer to the UNESCO recommendation by giving more to education. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Victor Ome.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Victor Ome, OFR. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, let me say that the budget presented yesterday was a very ambitious budget with very huge financial provisions in the highlighted sectors. I don't want to go into the economics of the budget, but I was wondering how 1,500 naira for $1 will bring down inflation from 34% to 15%. I'll leave that to work out. Let me go straight to where I have concern. Mr. President, my concern is on the infrastructure proposed by Mr. President to be built in 2025. During the budget speech, Mr. President highlighted that Sokoto-Badagry Highway will be built and the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway will be built. I was waiting to hear that the President will build the Port Harcourt-Maiduguri Railway Line, which is the Eastern Rail Line. You will recall that I brought a motion here for the federal government to build the Eastern Rail Line, and that motion was co-sponsored by 35 senators. It was unanimously resolved that the President should build standard gauge rail from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. All the senators on that corridor co-sponsored that motion. So I was expecting a legacy project, Eastern Rail Line, running from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. But it does appear that it has been overlooked again. Looking at the budget,
We have not seen the details now. This is
I've seen the provision on land transportation. What we have there is 223 billion. 223 billion. We have looked at it, and it is obvious with the ongoing projects from Kaduna to Kano, Kano to Maladi, and other rail lines under construction. That Port Harcourt-Maiduguri rail line can hardly be there. So I want to draw the attention of the Senate to that. Let's hope that it is in the breakdown as you are hoping. But in the event that it is not there, I would like the Senate to intervene, because the government has just announced free train ride starting from 20th December to 6th of January for the holidays. There's no rail line in that corridor. So I pray that the Senate should consider
your time is off.
Senate should consider that project to include it in the 2025 appropriation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hussein Babangida, then Senator Tatizam.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Babangida Hussein, representing Jigawa Northwest. Mine is going to be short, sharp, and straight. What made music to my ears yesterday during the budget presentation was Mr. President's commitment, and I quote, "Food security is not negotiable. In this regard, we are taking bold steps to ensure that every Nigerian can feed conveniently and none of our citizens will have to go to bed hungry." This is sweet music to my ears and to the ears of all Nigerians. We are praying that this commitment will be upheld and kept, and the issue of food will be history food scarcity will be history in Nigeria. Thank you very much, and congratulations to Mr. President.
Senator Titus Azam, then Senator Isa Jibril Ochocho.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Titus Tatengizam. I represent Benue Northwest Senatorial District. Mr. President, I am excited about the title of this budget. Budget for restoration, securing peace, and rebuilding prosperity. My understanding of the word restoration means putting back what has been destroyed. And that implies that my own constituency, which consists of 7 local governments, 3 of which are destroyed by banditry, will be restored by this budget. What that means is that my people who have been traumatized, who are perpetually kept in IDPs, will now have peace. And then the third one is rebuilding prosperity. Someone who has lost everything to banditry, someone who has been displaced, someone who's living in IDP camps, will now have prosperity. And I hope all of those will be achieved within 2025. But my worry, however, is that looking at the budget, I have observed that all the other development commissions have some budgetary allocations done to them, except the one of North Central Development Commission. I don't know whether it is an oversight, because all of these commissions were given birth to about the same time. So if the other ones have budgetary provisions, I wonder why that was North Central is not reflected in the budget. I crave the indulgence of the Senate President to facilitate the inclusion of North Central Development Commission in this budget, and to ensure that the people that I represent are restored, have peace, and also enjoy prosperity. Thank you. May God bless all of us.
Senator Isa Jibrin. Then we move to the other side. Senator Gabriel
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, very
Senator
distinguished
Dahua, then Senator Salio Mustafa,
I
and
am
Senator
Isa
David Plank.
Jibrin, representing the very good people of Kogi East. Mr. President, I want to join my colleagues to appreciate the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for this very well thought out budget proposal. This budget, I would say, will address the conditions, 2 basic conditions that are very necessary for economic growth. I'll call them necessary conditions and sufficient conditions for economic growth and development. I'll start with the issue of bridging the infrastructural gap. Okay, we know that the cost of doing business in Nigeria is so high, mainly because of the infrastructural deficit. So if the infrastructural issues are addressed adequately, that will water down the cost of doing business. Investors in Nigeria and outside Nigeria will be encouraged to invest their money, and that will create a lot of employment opportunities for our citizens. Secondly, the issue of agriculture, arising from the security arrangement that is going to be put in place to ensure that there's adequate security for farmers to go to their farm. That, of course, naturally will increase the yields from the farms. But more importantly, I want to encourage the government to go into agro-allied industries. Instead of selling this produce in raw forms, we should go into agro-allied industries so as to add values to this produce and make them more marketable within Nigeria and outside Nigeria. Then the issue of social responsibility, of course, has been addressed. Health and education, which is also very important for economic growth. The only area of concern, Mr. President, is that the amount earmarked for debt servicing is so high. 15.20 trillion, to me, it is very high. And of course, it is high because we are highly geared. Okay? I want to believe that there is a need to put all the major revenue generating agencies to task. They should double their efforts. Okay? They should double their efforts. Even in this year, too, of course, there's provision for debt funding, okay, to bridge the gap between the revenue and the expenditure. So I think we need to encourage okay, the revenue generating agencies to beef up their operations so as to be able to generate revenues to take care of these gaps. Thank you very much.
Senator Garba Musa Doki, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, the Senate President. My distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Garba Musa Maidoki, representing Kebbi South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I would like to join my colleagues in congratulating the President for this wonderfully crafted budget. But I have some few remarks about the implementation of the budget. Firstly, Mr. President, when the details are out, I want to be assured that the revenue for 2024, for which I know most ministries have exceeded target, are available to finance the extended 2024 budget that we have extended to 2025. And if we are using 2025 money to finance 2024 budget, I want the President to be clear and the ministers to be clear how much we are going to take out of 2025 to finance 2024 budget. Mr. President, I want to report to you that yesterday, the money we put for security, to me, has yielded or has started yielding very positive returns, sir. Yesterday, around Zamfara axis, Mr. President, I need to report the Nigerian security have neutralized over 500 bandits. Over 500 bandits. And they have recovered over 200 motorcycles. And some of them have been captured alive. These are the people terrorizing us in Zamfara, Sokoto, and Kebbi, and even part of Niger. I want to commend the President for this, and I want to commend the Nigerian Army. I want the Senate to specifically write to the Nigerian Army to commend them for this feat so that we can encourage them to do better. Thirdly, Mr. President, the solid mineral sector, sir. The solid mineral sector has really done not much in 2024. And we need to encourage this Minister for the Solid Minerals so that I've not done 2 minutes, my brother. The minister, okay, we need to encourage the Minister for Solid Minerals to intensify effort. I have not seen clear progress in the data generation or revenue increase in the solid minerals development. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, I think we need to commend the military for the success recorded in your area, in our area, Northwest, and it goes to show the demonstration of what the president is doing to deal with the issue of insecurity in our country. So we commend Mr. President, we commend our men and women in uniform, the Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Air Staff, Chief of Naval Staff, and other security agencies, the IGP and everyone on what they are doing, and more grace to their elbows until every men and women that are creating problems for us, bringing insecurity, are eradicated, are neutralized. So we continue to support them. Thank you for passing the information to us. Senator, Ismail Edefua.
Mr. President, my name is Senator Dr. Samaila Edefua Kaila. I represent Bauchi North. Let me join my colleagues also in congratulating Mr. President for this very ambitious budget. And I will want to say something about the health. That is my area. Mr. President, the health has seen a little jack up from 1-point-something trillion last year to about 2.48 trillion this year. Mr. President, the health sector is one of the few ministries where everything is foreign exchange dependent. From the vaccines that we import for our children, to the equipments of our hospitals, to our consumables and disposables, to our drugs, everything is foreign exchanged. Mr. President, the budget of last year will buy you more in foreign exchange than what this budget will buy you. So in other words, as far as health ministry is concerned, this budget did not really increase the budget spending of health ministry. So I'm calling on my colleagues and the Senate to please jack up this health allocation in order to take care of this very high inflation or difference between what we used to buy dollar last year and what we are buying it today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Dike Plan, then Senator Salim Mustafa. Then we cross over. Senator Bina Siaro will take, and then, of course, the Deputy Minority Leader.
President of the Senate, my colleagues, I am Senator Dike Plan, Senator representing Plateau Central. I rise again to support the feelings of the National Assembly on the arrival of Mr. President to present the budget. That his appearance was, there's a lot of ingenuity, originality in his speech and what the content of the speech. I believe that we may have it different this time around. Sir, I deeply also agree that more should be given to defense and the security sector. But I desire that in the implementation of monies that will be given to the Ministry of Defense and other security agencies, efforts should be made towards increasing the personnel, which will be like reducing most of our youths in the street. I believe that if the manpower is increased, parallel to increment in equipment, it will sweep away criminality, it will improve the ratio of security to us. Sir, without security, all the items he prioritized will not work. With security, bumper harvest. With security, stable in education. With security, we will be able to get 2.06 million barrels per day. But if you remove security, in fact, with insecurity, more people will be, our hospital will be filled with people that are sick. Not just sick, but injured people. Sir,
your time is
lastly,
off.
sir, the last
your
one,
time
sir.
is off.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appropriation to capital drives the economy.
Thank
sir,
you.
Ministry
Thank
for solid
Senator
minerals.
Sali, you have the floor.
10 million for mineral
Thank you.
solid mineral is small, sir.
Thank you. You have spent
Something
over
should be
10
done
minutes.
because we are blessed in the area of minerals, sir. Thank you very much.
Senator Sali Mustafa.
Your Excellency, the Senate President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Salim Mustafa, representing Kwara Central. Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues, I will go straight to the point. After the commendations of my distinguished colleagues, for the first time, I think there is light at the end of the tunnel if this budget is implemented to the fullest. A lot of people have spoken about insecurity and why the lack of security has brought us to this level. There are three major areas that all over the world, government will always intervene. These are health, education, and agriculture. I hope that this budget, after taking care of health and education, will equally look inward because you cannot secure the environment and you don't have enough to deploy into agriculture for farmers to really do what they need to do. I'm hoping that we will be able to look inward again and see what we can do to support the aspect of agriculture in this budget. Because with that, we can produce what we eat and eat what we produce. All we need is to jack up our production. That is the most important aspect. If not, then whatever we are securing, then that means we're just securing it for vacuum. So I hope that my colleagues, at the end of the day, when we are looking at the details of this budget, will be able to do more for agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your time is up. Deputy Minority Leader, then Senator Venus Yaro.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Venus Yaro. I represent Adama South. Mr. President, I would like to start by saying that I was cautiously optimistic when the executive was taking time to present the budget. My hope is that in taking their time, they have done an excellent job. And like some of my colleagues have said, the details, the devil will be in the details when we eventually get the budget. Next, Mr. President, I'd like to say
not the devil, the angel will be in the details.
So be it, Mr. President, as the President pleases. Mr. President, I would like to say that the statement of Mr. President CNC in talking about the milestone achieved in implementing a 2024 budget is not really reflected by the facts on the ground, because it talks about the revenues in record numbers. It talks about implementing expenditure up to 85% by the third quarter. But in the oversight functions that we undertook over the last 1 month, almost all the MDS got only about 20% of the capital budget. So it means that all the revenue we have been generating has been expended in recurrent. Therefore, not much development has taken place. Secondly, Mr. President, I think it is good to talk about implementing legacy infrastructure projects. You know, one of my colleagues have mentioned the Badagry Sokoto Highway and the Lagos Calabar Coastal Road. Mr. President, we have roads, highways within the country that are in very bad state. I would expect that we will also focus on rehabilitating existing roads that are in the country. Finally, Mr. President.
Your time is off.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Minority Leader, you have the floor. Earlier, but
thank you, Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues. My name is Oyewumi Kamorudin Olalere, Senator representing Osun West. So I join all the previous speakers by congratulating Mr. President on the presentation of this very promising budget. I just want to emphasize something. As promising as this budget is, judging from what we witnessed the implementation of last year's budget, 2024 budget till now, I think the emphasis of this Senate should shift to the executive particularly in 3 areas. One is the procurement processes, releases from the Ministry of Finance, and then other agencies. Because as we speak, up till October this year, some agencies have not completed their procurement process on the budget that was passed December last year. So if care is not taken, this budget we are talking about, when passed, by this time next year, we should be talking of not implementing up to 20-30% of it. So the beauty of it will not be seen in the public. So we have to call on the executive to make sure that between now and May, all procurement processes should be completed. Letter of award releases to contractors, and then we have to talk to the finance. They have to probably look at the idea of centralizing the payment to over 700 MDAs in Nigeria to 1 or 2 offices in the Ministry of Finance. If contractors are on the field, they are working, and the payment is taking 2-3 months to be done, the work will not be done. And Nigeria will not feel the impact of this budget. So I want us in our various oversight functions to monitor the executive very well to make sure that the beauty of this project, this budget, is felt by Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Wadala Leo, you have the floor. Then we move to Joseph Science, Senator Patrick Mudebuse, and then Senator Simon Lalong.
Thank you so very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I remain Senator Ahmed Wadada Aliyu, Sarkin Yakin Kefi, the famous horse rider. I represent Nasarawa West Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this is a very, very ambitious budget, unprecedented, Christian restoration, which of course should be commended. For anybody to be successful, the risk bearing of that person must be high. I salute the courage and the risk bearing of Mr. President to have come up with such a budget, which Nigerians had never seen before in numbers like this. Beyond commending the president, or reasons for commending the president, we all know the state of security in Nigeria. My colleagues have spoken on the merits or advantages of the various allocations. Security is the bedrock of every societal development. Without security, nothing can be achieved. So for security to have this high figure of 5 billion naira, which does not mean that that is good enough for security, but at least there is a paradigm shift from where we are coming from, or where we were. Permit me to say that in the aspect of infrastructure has gotten over 4 billion. Without infrastructure, particularly to be specific, electricity. Infrastructure is 4 trillion. Sorry. Security, okay, about 5 trillion. Particularly to be specific, electricity. In this day and age, 21st century, without electricity, there is virtually nothing that can be achieved. One of the objectives of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration is to make life worth living for the downtrodden. And if we are to go by that, everything possible within humanity should be brought to the table for electricity to be provided in Nigeria.
Your time is up, Senator. We added 1 minute for you.
My time? Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, My utmost concern or worries is the implementation of the budget. The president must put his foot down. And for us here as representatives of the people,
your time is obvious, Chairman.
we must always be assertive of our authority. For any chief executive of MDA that refuses to respond to calls of the National Assembly should,
Senator Asuko Ekwenyo, then Senator Patin Dibuse.
Mr. President, am I done? Okay, I saw.
Senator Patin Dibuse, then Senator Simon Lalong, and then Senator Asuko Ekwenyo. No, Dibuse has the floor.
No. Mr. President, thank you very much. I will really time myself. Having thanked Mr. President, my name is Ndubeze Patrick C., representing Imo North. Having thanked Mr. President for the thoughtfulness and crafting of this budget, I want us to draw attention to the fact that the fiscal deficit in this budget is 13.08. And again, servicing of debt is taking us 15.81 trillion. Good. So, the issue of pegging the Naira-dollar ratio to 1,500, and we are talking of it should come, it's supposed to be low. I want us to recognize that for us to improve in our budgetary system and in our execution, we must improve in our production to help to let the balance of trade. The equation should come to our own side, Nigeria. If not, you cannot get it right. And also, we should allow the market mechanism to determine the Naira-dollar ratio. And in so doing, you might find out that if we improve our production, we might at the end have maybe less than 1,005 per dollar this coming year. But it cannot be done if we don't improve in our production. And how do we improve in our production? The production, you need steel in every aspect of production. You need what? Steel. Now, the vehicular importation in this country is consuming a lot. You need steel. And for you to do that, we'll have to improve Ajokuta. My friend, I'm not up to
Your time is off.
No. I'm not up to 1 minute. I'm timing myself.
The timekeeper said your time is off.
No. Sorry, Mr. President. Give me 1 minute. I'm timing myself. So what I'm saying is this. Ajokuta need to be improved.
Senator Simon Lalong, you have the floor.
Yeah.
One minute. Simon Lalong.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Simon Lalong, representing Plateau South. I will summarize my submission this way. That with the words of Mr. President, item 22, our budgetary allocation underscores this administration's strategic priorities, particularly in advancing the renewed hope agenda and achieving its development objectives. And then he put defense, infrastructure, health, and education. First, I must commend Mr. President. Nigerians are commending Mr. President for being bold, for being courageous, for being focused. The question, after this summary, the details are going to be there. We are talking about implementation. Mr. President, my only question and concern will be, with this kind of boldness, are we also very bold to carry out our oversight functions so that it will go aligned, it will realign with the commitment of Mr. President in the implementation of this budget? If we do that, I am sure Nigerians will be very happy for it. I so submit. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ekwenyo, you can now, the floor is yielded to you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Asuko Ekpenyong, Senator representing Cross River South. Let me start by commending Mr. President on the submissions and his presentation of the budget of restoration yesterday to the joint sitting of the Senate and the House of Reps. This budget pegged at 47.9 trillion seeks to focus on infrastructure, on security and defense, health, as well as education. The figures tagged to the budget for defense and security stands at 4.1 trillion. That for infrastructure is at 4 trillion. That for education is at 3.5, and that for health is at 2.4, which shows the intention of this administration. Also, a review of his 18 months of stewardship over the economy shows an improvement. Foreign exchange reserves have risen to $42 billion from almost a negative inheritance. We have trade surpluses of about 5.8 trillion, and we see the economic growth in the country is at 3.4, shooting past the projected figure of 3.2%. However, there is just one anomaly in this budget, and I want to add my voice to that of my brother and friend, distinguished Senator Titus Zam. Looking at the statutory transfers that have been earmarked in the budget, there is no provision for the South-South Development Commission as was passed by the Senate and the House of Representatives. I understand that the argument is that an assent may not have been given yet for the South-South, but we see that the Southwest Development Commission has provisions even though it has not been assented to. Mr. President, please let there be
Chairman, your
provision for
time
the
is off.
South-South Development Commission.
Distinguished
Thank
Senator.
you very much, sir.
Senator Akobondo, thereafter Senator Yaradua, and then Senator Sani and Senator Odende.
Thank you, Mr. President, for recognizing me. I remain Austin Akovundu, representing the good people of Abia Central Senatorial District. Excellency, I'd like to join my colleagues by commending this ambitious budget, especially in the area of allocation to defense, because virtually every segment of development requires security cover for progress to be made. I'm also happy that even the review, food security has also been brought up as a measure of defense cover, security cover. But however, Your Excellency, I'd like to mention that the problem of the amount of money for debt servicing is still a source of worry to me, because that is approximately 1/3 of the total budget, 15.08 trillion for debt servicing. That is very likely going to put pressure on the available resources for capital and other needs. I would like to draw our attention to that, and also bring the issue of oversight to the front burner, because no matter how beautiful this budget is, will require implementation, and implementation will require stringent and timeous oversight on the part of the legislature. Excellency, I think the situation now calls for more money to be generated. Oftentimes I've talked about revenue generation. We should also pay more attention in strengthening the strategy of these agencies.
Your time is up, Senator Akobondo. Austin, we now yield the floor to Senator Yaradua.
Thank you, Excellency. All the same.
Your mic, Senator Akobondo.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I am Abdulaziz Musa Radua, representing Katsina Central. Mr. President, I want to join my colleagues in commending Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for a beautiful presentation of the budget yesterday. I want to also commend him for considering very critical sectors that are critical to the development of this country, and considering security as the first critical sector by allocating 4.06 trillion to the Defense and Security Agency. I want to use this opportunity to draw attention to my distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, that security is paramount. And as mentioned by most of my colleagues here, without security, there will be no development. So it is important to understand that the security agencies, armed forces of this country need a lot of resources allocated to them to enable them carry out their duties, especially the Nigerian Army, which is deployed in the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. The strength of the Army, though, is inadequate. It is important for us to
Senator Abdulaziz, your time is off.
30 seconds.
Okay, 2 seconds.
Yes. Mr. President, thank you for giving me this time. I just want my colleagues to understand the need for us to allocate more resources to the Army, considering the nature of operations that they conduct, because we need them to, as quickly as possible, take care of the security situation of this nation.
Noted. Thank you. Noted. Thank you very much, and noted. Senator Sani Wasiu, you have 2 minutes as usual. And then after Senator, then.
Thank you, the Senate President. I remain Wasiu Sani Eshinlokun. I rise to commend Mr. President for this budget. I look at it and I saw a quantum leap from what was presented last year to this year. Do I think it is achievable? Yes. Very, very achievable, and I think that we should all work together for it to be realized. And however, there are certain concerns that I have. Basically, one is the fact that since year 2023, when this administration came on board, they moved fisheries to the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy. But despite the best effort, the Ministry of Budget still put the budget of fisheries, Department of Fisheries, in Ministry of Agriculture, which hampers their development and the usage of the funds allocated to them. Also, I also want to talk about the allocation of resources. 50% this to that all this agency. There is difference between a service rendering agency and a collection agency. FIRS is a collection agency. Custom is a collection agency. NPA is a service rendering agency. Without them rendering those services, the money cannot be realized. I look at the maritime sector and I find that what custom is generating now, 5 trillion, they've done beautifully well. But it can even be increased to 20 billion in the next 5 years. However, if NPA does not get the desired revenue at the appropriate time, we delay the services. And when there is demurrage, no boats will come. And if boats don't come, custom will not realize that money. I just think that we should put those things in perspective. And I just think that for me, the budget is perfect. However, the underlying assumption, security, the government has done its own bit. We also, and the community leader must also do their own bit. We must support government. We should not allow our people to do what is not right. And I want to say, the budget is a very good one. Thank you, sir.
Senator Emmanuel Odende.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. My name is Emmanuel Memga Udendi. I represent the very good people of Benue, Northeast. Mr. President, I join my colleagues to appreciate the President for the 2025 appropriation bill. The budget fundamentals and assumptions are good, except for the fact that we peg Naira 1,500 to $1. It is very difficult to control inflation at the rate of 1,500. Apart from that, I appreciate Mr. President for prioritizing security. For those of us whose constituents are killed every day on the farm, it is a welcome development. We believe by 2025, when this budget is implemented, our constituents can go to the farm without fear of being killed. That will go a long way in boosting agricultural production, just boosting food security. In that regard, I urge my distinguished colleagues to give this budget a chance and let it be read for the second time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Sunday, Senator Sunday, you have the floor. Senator Kumbuwe, Sunday.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Benson.
Friday, not Sunday, Friday. Kumbuwe Benson, Friday. Thank you, my good friend.
Excellency, thank you very much. Guys, also to lend my voice in supporting this bill, and we want to just draw your attention to a few concerns that I have. Although I know we don't have much time on our side, but I want to commend the government for all the drive that it has taken, particularly on the area of security. In my region, as all of us are aware, there had been a lot of insecurity here and there. But today, the question is not the same as it was. And the drive to pacify stakeholders and those vulnerable people has also been a very remarkable one. However, I want to point that drive also have brought a lot of improvement, particularly on the area of revenue generation. But my people and my area, I always want to emphasize that whatever Nigeria stands to gain today, much of it relies on what the Niger Delta is able to come up with. But as it were, the cry has always been the same. As far as I know, the cry of poverty, insecurity, education deficit, health challenge, all over the country is the same. However, we suffer it the most. And I want this budget to address these issues very frontally, Mr. President, very frontally. And in doing that, we'll be very happy.
Senator Kumbuwe, your time is off.
Yes,
even though I'm my friend, I can't help it.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Kumbuwe. You've spoken very well.
I support you so well, and I support the bill, and we want to pray that in implementation, because right now, as we stand, as we speak, in the whole of Bayelsa, I cannot point to one particular project, remarkable federal project that is going on, apart from this constituency project Solar light is not an issue that anybody should be relying or depending on. And I want to draw this budget, draw your attention, the Senate, to this fact that we need.
Thank you, Senator Komo Benson. You have spoken very well. I've heard you. You have your nose.
Thank you.
What
Sir.
you said are noted. Thank you very much. Okay. Senator Etang, you have the floor. Former Speaker, Cross River House of Assembly.
Thank you very much.
Mr. William Etang.
Yeah. My name is Senator Ethan Williams. I represent Cross River Central. Mr. President, I thank our president for his intention being known in that document. The budget is an estimate and a goodwill from Mr. President that we've seen. We've seen that, yes, all the bills, the motions we've done here over the year, he has put them into work by making provisions for security, by also improving on our infrastructure. I'm so particular about the Lagos-Calabar coastal road, which to me makes sense to my people. But I will thank Mr. President also for making an attempt to improve and make more provisions on security. I would say, yes, this bill should be read the second time, and then while we go into the nitty-gritty of this bill, because at the other stage, we now deal specific. But they also make a provision for the South-South development.
Senator Etang, your time is off. Thank you. Senator Joel, you have the floor. Senator Joel Thomas, you have the floor.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Joel Honorable Thomas. I represent the good people of Delta South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I want to join my colleagues to appreciate the President for taking a bold step to restore and to secure and bring peace to our country. I also want to commend him for trying to rebuild prosperity for our people in 2025 budget. The 2024 year hasn't been very easy for our people. That's why I said I have to commend him for this bold step. However, the president has made up his mind on what he intends to do in this budget proposal in 2025. I want to say that a lot is expected from us in this chamber to make sure that every kobo that is being appropriated in this budget, in the 2025 budget, is spent and our oversight functions carried out in such a way that the real benefits for the people of Nigeria is realized. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to speak.
Senator Dixon, you have the floor. The former two-time governor of Bayelsa State and former member House of Representatives, where he served as chairman's Committee on Judiciary.
Yeah, Your Excellency, Mr. Senate President, I stand on Order 83, and I move that our time should be extended beyond 3 o'clock. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I write to second the motion by Senate Leader that we extend our time beyond 3 o'clock to enable us to complete other assignments on other people. So second.
Those in favor that the time should be extended for our sitting today, as moved by the Leader of the Senate and seconded by Minority Leader, please say aye. Those against the motion, please nay. The ayes have it. Senator Dixon, Your Excellency Dixon, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr.
President and my dear colleagues, Henry Sirake Dixon, Bayelsa West. First, I would like to adopt the views earlier canvassed by several colleagues who have spoken before me in terms of supporting the general themes and focus of the budget in terms of focusing on investing in supporting the security services supported by all. Similarly, we support the focus in the budget on investing in the people of this country, by investing in education, investing in healthcare. These are general themes that I fully, like many others who have spoken, fully associate with. But I would like to draw attention, as I believe some members have already canvassed, and as the president himself said yesterday while presenting these estimates to us, that the budget is optimistic. And I would like us to know that we are really dealing with very optimistic estimates. Optimism is not a bad thing, but we have to be cautious. Yes, because of the underlying premises are not very factually correct as we speak. For example, premise of producing 2 million barrels or even over. We hope for the best, but I think we should also be prepared for the worst. We had earlier in the course of discussing the MTF said that in the first quarter there should be a comprehensive review, and I'm sure that that will be helpful. But we need to bear in mind that we are dealing with very optimistic estimates. It's not just the over 2 million daily production. We're talking of reducing inflation from near 35% or more currently to 15%. We are talking of bringing down exchange rate from almost 1,007 or even more to about 1,005. Even though in the MTF, we pegged it at 1,004. So the caution, what I'm saying is that we should all be mindful of the scenario, factual scenario we are dealing with. But in general, the focus of the budget on national security and defense, commendable. The focus on investing in people, investing in education, investing in healthcare and infrastructure, highly commendable. But I would like to draw attention before I sit to the fact that there is clear omission, not really an omission, maybe because we have not passed the South-South Development Commission bill. But I just want us to draw our attention to the fact that whereas funding has been provided for all other development commissions, zonal development commissions, that of the South-South, maybe because it has not been assented to law, has not been provided for. Therefore, it is our hope that while doing the supplementary in the course of next year, when eventually the needful has been done, that the estimates for that development commission, which is the only outstanding one, will be captured. Then finally, as chairman of the Committee on Ecology and Climate Change, I'll be failing in my duties, Mr. President and my dear colleagues, if I don't bring to our attention the fact that our country's response to the climate agenda is not only not properly coordinated, but also not fully backed up in terms of allocation of resources. In the Climate Act that we have passed, There's provision for activation of the climate fund. And I believe that this budget is an opportunity for the executive arm, for the president, who is chairman of the commission, of the council, Nigeria Climate Council, to properly activate the provisions of the act by allocating money and by convening the National Climate Council, of which he is chairman, so that we can signal to the rest of the world at the seriousness of our country.
Your time is off, Senator Dixon.
And finally, every part of our community, of our country, is suffering from ecological disaster. In the Niger Delta, in the coastal areas, communities are lost. Livelihoods are lost all across the country. In the north, there is desertification and erosion in the south, and so on.
Thank you, Senator Dixon. You've taken 6 minutes instead of 2 minutes.
Provisions to be made available to address this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator. Now, the last but not the least to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for giving me the last opportunity to speak. I want to join the rest of my colleagues in commending the provision.
Sorry, Senator Panico, you want to speak after? You want to speak? Okay, you'll be the last but not the least.
Okay, thank you. I want to join my other colleagues commending the president on provision of this budget, particularly with concerns to security. But I want to draw attention of this honorable chamber to the provisions of arts and culture, women, and Naseni. Arts and culture in the sense that most countries that do not have oil are relying on agriculture, on culture and tourism for the sustenance of their economy. So the provisions made for arts and culture is You're welcome, sir.
I was watching you.
Yes.
You have about 5 seconds.
Yeah. So most of the countries in the world that do not have oil rely on tourism for the sustenance of their economy. I think a lot has to be provided for art, for art, culture, and tourism to be able to generate revenue. This ministry is capable of being self-sustaining. And then women affairs, you will discover that most of us are here thanks to women, because when it comes to voting, women come out more to vote. But you look at the provision of the budget for the Ministry for Women Affairs, it's very meager. Please, I call on this chamber to look at what can be done to be able to make it better for women to be supported to get to give us more support and sustain our families. Thank you very much.
Senator Banigo.
The Senate President, my distinguished colleagues, I want to join my colleagues who have spoken already and commended the budget of the presentation of our President, the 2025 budget of restoration, securing peace, and rebuilding prosperity for Nigerians. I would particularly want to commend the idea that it intends to fix mostly security, power, and manufacturing. I think this will be a very good turnaround for our people, because the issues of power, security, and the lack of manufacturing to provide jobs for our young people and secure employment, creditable employment, has been a big issue throughout the 2024 that we have gone through. So I think this is very good and very ambitious. And I also want to commend the provision of funds for health. Even still, it is not enough. We have, from our calculation, maybe it's about 6-7%, but we really need to get much more than that, because we have an Abuja declaration that we signed to that signs for 15% of our provision, 15% provision for health from our takings. And then I noticed that we have some funds for basic health provision, but I don't know whether that is actually 1% of the consolidated revenue, CRF, which is the provision. Because if it is not, then it should be much more than that. And also the provision for basic, for infrastructure in health, which is very commendable. In all, I want to say that we are impressed with what we have seen so far, and we believe that with enough robust oversight of our various committees to the MDAs, we should see a better performance in the coming year over this budget. And so I therefore want to say that I think we should approve the second reading of this bill for consideration by the respective committees I so submit. Thank you, Your Excellency, for giving me this opportunity.
Senator Stanley Musa.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Mohammed Sani Musa, representing Niger East. The presentation of the budget 2025 that was christened Budget of Restoration, Securing Peace, and Rebuilding Prosperity. I think if there's any opportunity we have, is this time. With this budget, it will be able to reflect that our reform agenda is working. It will show that the government's agenda is working if we are able to achieve what has been set out. Bringing down inflation from 34.6 to 15% will be unprecedented. And it has happened in some economies. It has happened in America, we have seen it. And how did they achieve that? They tightened quite a lot of leakages that they have. And then they strengthened all the areas that they will be able to generate, whereby their deficit is being controlled, and which, from all indication, this budget have shown that debt servicing will be upheld. It has also shown that revenue generation will increase. It has also indicated that for the first time, or even more than any other time, if you look at the capital spending, because every economy, if you want to gauge it to see if it's working, you look at the capital spending, because the multiplier effect of doing that, when infrastructures are being constructed, more people are engaged, more employment is being generated. So I believe this budget is one budget that will help this country. If you look at how we have tried as much as possible to meet the growth, worldwide, the growths have declined. But if you look at 2024, you will see that the growth rate Nigeria has maintained is about 3.2%, which is very good. And we are forecasting that by next year, the growth rate will go up to about 3.4, and which, if we do that, it will balance the economy. If you look at the expenditure, the total expenditure for the year, and you convert it to dollars, you said it's very meager. If we are now talking about getting to $1 trillion economy, this is the first stage that we have to. if we're able to achieve this budget and be able to implement and strengthen all the leakages that we have, I believe that the economy will go up. If you look at the projected oil revenue production, which was tagged at 2.006, and then pegged also, because there might be decline in the cost of crude oil. The price of crude oil may go down when the U.S. president may be sworn in and he gave order that they should produce more. So, but what this budget have done is to make sure that when that issue comes up, we are able to stabilize our own prices. So I believe this budget is one budget that if we adhere to it, we will come out of the economic doldrum we are. And then you look at education. What has been given to education is very good. The only thing I will maybe call on my colleagues is to look at the area of agriculture to see if we can improve in what we are putting in the agricultural sector. Because if we actually want to bring down the food inflation, we must have so much produce. We must have them in abundance so that the supply will even be greater than the demand when it comes. Because once it is there available in the market, you'll see that the prices will definitely come down. So with this, I believe allow me now. With this, I believe that the 2025 appropriation, when it becomes an act, it will solve most of our problems. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me that opportunity.
Senator Olamide.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague, Adeola Solomon Olamilekon, representing Ogun West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, let me start by congratulating the National Assembly as well as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for successfully presenting to the National Assembly the 2025 appropriation bill, which he christened as Budget of Restoration, and with emphasis on poverty reduction, security, and security. Mr. President, I want to strongly believe that this is deliberate because the President chose this name having considered a lot of indices on the state of affairs of the country before coming up with the tag Budget of Restoration. Mr. President, one major area of concern which I listened to all my colleagues who have contributed and who have said one or two things is in two major areas. One, on the issue of the exchange rates. And Senator Adam Oshiomhole raised it and was critical about it, that we should do everything to sustain that the exchange rate stand at 1,500 to $1 because of the purchasing power parity. And I must say this, I will further suggest that we should look for a way by which this exchange rate will go down further. Because all indications to ensure that this exchange rate goes below 1,500, this current administration is working seriously hard to ensure that comes to pass. First and foremost, the refinery coming back on board. We have the Port Harcourt refinery now working. Dangote just this morning, how true it is that petroleum pump price has been further go down. And also the Kaduna refinery, they are working around the clock to also put it to work. And if all this, we have it in place, definitely the exchange rate will further go down. Because this rate that is budget, that comes with this budget is not the actual rate. This is the rate in which the government wants to work with. while the actual rate there, which is operated by the Bureau de Change operators, is quite different from this. So there is still an exchange rate difference of about 250. But what the government will work with in the budget is this $1,500. So what we should do through proper monitoring, effective oversighting, is to work closely with the Central Bank of Nigeria and all major stakeholders and players in the economic sector to see how we can further work with them to bring down this rate to as low as 1,400. If you look at the medium-term expenditure framework that was passed, what was contained in it was $1,400. That shows the expectation of the current administration is that dollars should operate at 1,400 to a dollar. Naira should operate. So what we should do is to work closely with these relevant stakeholders in the economic sector to see how we can further bring down the exchange rate that is being attached to this current document. Mr. President, having said that, I also want to mention that I'm concerned, and my concern is that the cost of running the government and the cost of providing the dividend of democracy in terms of development to the country, the disparity is too high. In this current budget, what we have is about 80% or 75% of the 49.7 is cost of servicing, recurrent expenditure, debt servicing, and everything. While the cost of providing development project and everything, as we speak, is about 9.8 trillion naira. So when you look at that disparity, that shows a lot still need to be done in this regard to ensure that we bring down cost of running the government to at least the barest minimum, so that the cost of providing infrastructure and other developmental things can go up to as much as at least 30 to 40%. And I know this current president, while serving as governor of Lagos State, he changed the trajectory, where we have 40% cost of running government and 55% cost of providing infrastructure and developmental projects across the state. So this is one area that we should also look at and work closely through proper oversighting on the part of our committee chairman to ensure that areas which we can recommend to the government, which we can tag as costs that we can reduce to increase the cost of our capital expenditure, we should also do that and work closely with our agencies and ministry and parastatals, which will be oversighting. Mr. President, having said that, I also want to congratulate the government of the day, at least the growth rate as projected by IMF and what we currently have. There is a disparity of about 2.5% difference, which is a welcome development. That shows that the reform agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is working, and we can only look or pray for the best in the coming year. Again, another area of concern, which my colleague have also expressed, is the area of inflation. And as we have said, this current document before us has an inflation rate of about 15%. But actually, from the Bureau of Statistics, the inflation rate stood at about 36.4%. That's a differential of almost 18%. So, and I know all the government has put in place this year in trying to curb the inflationary rates to be able to achieve the 15%, we definitely work, which is looking for alternative means of addressing the issue of subsidy through the conversion of our cars to the CNG is there, and also trying to bring our refinery and all others to work so that putting pressure on the dollars can be reduced. All of this will assist to curb inflation, and we should, the projection of 15% that have been proposed by this current administration in the 2024-5 appropriation bill can be achieved. But having said that, that still is due to some other factor, which is one, continuous monitoring, continuous engagement of the executive, and also we pray that we don't see any unforeseen situation that can cause further increase in the inflationary rate as projected by this by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, we should also congratulate the administration. Long before now, I can vividly recollect that the production, oil production, was about less than 1.2 million barrels per day or so. So now we are projecting about 2.06 billion, and we're already at about 1.8 million barrels per day. That shows that a lot of things is working. The security index is improving. And with all of this, I strongly believe that though it's an ambitious budget, but it's still achievable. And that was alluded to yesterday by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So the budget is very ambitious, but as ambitious as it is, we can't still compare it with the budget of some other countries of the world who are not as big as Nigeria in terms of natural resources or availability of resources. But we want to thank God that at least we are moving. We can only believe that by the end of the administration, by 2031, at the end of administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, haven't served 8 years, maybe Nigerian budget would be around 200 trillion or 300 trillion naira. So we are hoping that as we are moving progressively, we will continue to move in that direction so that at least Nigeria can take its pride of place among the community of states in the world. So once again, Mr. President, I have listened to all my colleagues, I've listened to all the observations, and during the consideration in terms of working with the committees and the final output of the budget, a lot of these observations that have been raised will be considered and will be looked into the integrity of it based on their merit, and that will form part of our report and before the eventual passage of the budget. Once again, Mr. President, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I so submit. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, is it the view of the Senate that this bill be now read a second time? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate, you may proceed to read the bill for the second time.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 49 trillion 740 billion 165 million 355,396 naira only, of which 4 trillion 435 billion 761 million 358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 16 trillion 327 billion 142 million 689,549 naira only before debt service. 14 trillion 123 billion 544 million 196,406 naira only before recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 14 trillion 853 billion 717 million 110,517 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2025 and for related matters 2024. Second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 49 trillion 740 billion 165 million 355,396 naira only, of which 4 trillion 435 billion 761 million 358,000 925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 16 trillion 327 billion 142 million 689,549 naira only is for debt service. The sum of 14 trillion 123 billion 544 million 196,406 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 14 trillion 853 billion 717 million 110,517 naira only is for contribution to Development Fund for Capital Expenditure for the year ending 31st day of December 2025 and for related matters 2024. Second reading taken. This bill is now referred to the Committee on Appropriation to report back to the Senate in 4 weeks. Distinguished colleagues, let me thank you for your resilience, your nationalistic disposition, your contributions to the general principles of the 2025 budgetary estimates, and your patriotism. And to say that, yes, indeed, we are still full because we started with a full chamber. And some of our colleagues have gone for other duties, other parliamentary engagements. Some are even traveling outside the country. So you can imagine we've had not less than 43 senators making contributions to these general principles of the debate today. On behalf of the leadership of the Senate, I want to thank you for your contributions to the Senate throughout the year and to wish you a Merry Christmas and a very happy New Year in advance, and for particularly for our Christian brethren. And I also want to say that God Almighty and Almighty Allah will definitely bless your new year. No tragedy will touch you or your families. You will go and come back in good health. In Almighty Allah. May God be with you and with your families. May you come back to continue the service to your fatherland. On that note, and also the joint session of yesterday was a great success to Nigerians. Those who are in charge of ad hoc committees that must report to us as soon as we come back, please get your reports ready. Then those who are in charge of conference committees to ensure that we marry the positions of both chambers together, get your reports ready. So that once we come back in January, we can get cracking. If there is need to call you back, in line with legislative practice, while you are on holiday, we'll do so. So don't forget that like they call it in the army, I think reservists. Yeah, on reserve. You can be called back anytime if there is need, so that we can convene in the national interest. The Senate wishes our colleagues, the Speaker and leadership in the House of Representatives, a very wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. We also wish Mr. President a very wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish all our families good health, joy of the season that surpasses all understanding. On that note, I thank you personally for your continued support. And I thank you for your prayers, the Deputy Senate President and all of us. So this Senate now stands every other questions to be in the office of the Senate leader. This Senate stands adjourned to the 14th day of January 2025. Happy New Year in advance.